Hello, good evening everyone. Thanks for joining us yet again for another one of our monthly Facebook Live sessions, Facebook, YouTube Live sessions. So give me a minute, as usual, give me some time to get everything up and running. I hope the audio is all good. Yeah, yes, we should be good to go. Let's do this. All right. Okay. All right, let's get started, okay? So, as usual, right, we start with the latest piece of news in the last month, and we don't have to go too far. Just over the weekend, we had the Amo Residences launch. For those of you who follow the channel, we have already done a review on Amo Residences. We're going to put that link into the description for you. And for those of you watching the replay, we'll plug it into the description. So, 98% sold, right? With an average price of 2,100 PSF. Is that out of my expectations? Okay, 98% to be honest was more than what I expected it to be. I was sharing with my clients, colleagues, friends. I expected it to be about 75% to 80%, but 98%. It's quite surprising. And I guess I put that down to that the developers have priced them quite well, contrary to what I believed them to be able to price at lah. Because with I think it was about 1,400 checks submitted, and the demand being so strong, to be honest, if I were in UOL's shoes, and knowing that upcoming supply will be few and far between, I would have perhaps taken a gamble to raise the prices a little bit higher than that, because if we really look at and that's the word on the streets with all the feedback that I've gathered, that 2,100 PSF, of course, for those people who are not following the market or not looking to buy, you will definitely feel that 2,100 PSF in the OCR in Ang Mo Kio, it's nuts. But for those who follow or those who are looking to buy in the area, the feedback is that 2,100 PSF is quite fair, because the resale in that area, if you really look at it, especially if you are looking at slightly larger units for own stay, we have Thomson Impressions, 1,000 square feet is already touching $2 million, which is close to 1,009, 2,000 PSF. So a brand new unit, 2,100 PSF, it's reasonable, okay? Putting things into perspective, right? But okay, so that's that, right? That's my reaction to the Amo Residences results. But maybe what would be more interesting, or what would be a better, nicer, interesting value add to the followers and the listeners is perhaps, right, knowing that the developers are aware that the upcoming supply will be few and far between, why would they still pricing it so attractively? Because their break-even price is there about 1,800 PSF, but they've only sold it at 2,100, which is about 10%. And considering the high construction costs and whatnot, high interest rates, that profit margin is very, very low in my opinion. Couple of guesses, right? Different ways you can look at it. Some people will say they are scared of Lentor Modern that's going to come up, right, in about a month's time with Guacoland. They probably don't want to challenge or to fight with Guacoland, albeit the fact that Lentor Modern is a little bit further further up, but it being a mixed-use development and whatnot. Another way to look at it, which is how I see it, is that I think UOL wants to just move this development along. They got that piece of land after going through quite a competitive tender with 15 bidders. They probably are looking to just move this particular plot, free up their cash and whatnot, and maybe explore some of the upcoming GLS or maybe some en blocs, because of the 2018 cooling measures have really brought down the number of bidders for GLS and also brought down so there's more en blocs being put on the market than en blocs being bought. So actually, as a developer, they are in quite a favorable position on that note. Of course, bearing in mind the kind of cooling measures that they have to deal with, rising interest rates, high construction costs and whatnot. That aside, on a sheer demand-supply side factor, I think if I were the developer, maybe I say, this one, can sell, we just sell, then we move on to the next one. Maybe I go for a slightly bigger plot, maybe even a en bloc, slightly bigger development lah. So that's that on that perspective. Pardon me for the other article, which is today's article. I think that is maybe a little bit more interesting also, because 98%, so what's done is done. The buying frenzy at Amo residences ups the ante on whether more property cooling measures are needed. And that is it's perhaps the first time we've seen this come up. And it's so soon after the last round of cooling measures, because the last round of cooling measures was just in December. We are 7 months out on the back of a lot of uncertainty in the market with the looming recession, with rising interest rates. But very naturally, a 98% take-up rate at the launch. And this 98%, I don't even think we had a percentage this high even in the 2017-2018 rush right before the 2018 cooling measures. So 98% understandably would raise some concerns about the potential cooling measures. But do I think that is going to happen? We really have to see. For those who follow the channel, a key indicator that I look at is the number of bidders for the GLS plots, because if you take a look back, right before the December 2021 cooling measures, one good example is Amo. The number of bidders were 15. It dropped to, I believe, if I remember correctly, about 5 for Pine Grove and 2 for Dunman Road right after the GLS, right after the last round of cooling measures. So, in the next round, a key indicator I will look at really is the number of bidders for those plots, because yes, 98% bought 372 units. The government will look at a wider picture. They will look at bigger data points on this, because what we do sense in the market is that maybe the resale volumes, and it's also shown on the newspapers, that the resale volumes are not spiking as much as this, So if it's a one-off kind of thing, maybe it will be okay. But let's say we have Lentor Modern coming up, I believe it's 700 to 800 units. That one again, 98% sold out, and the resale market starts picking up. The thing is, because of the lack of supply of new launches, the property price index would not appear to spike extremely crazily, but it may seem to spike, especially in the OCR. If we look at the data for Q2, Q3, it will look like it spikes because we have Lentor Modern and Amo really setting the benchmark prices. So I really can predict Q4 when they release the property price index for Q2, Q3, it will look like it spiked because of this particular case. But do I think cooling measures will come? Honestly, no. But word on the street is that some of the people are concerned that the government may adjust the interest rate that they use to calculate TDSR And on that, right, maybe that will happen, especially if interest rates start to touch that 3.5% tolerance rate, or the 3.5% that the government has plugged into the formula to sort of safeguard the population from over leveraging themselves. If the market rises above 3.5, they will be forced to change that. And it does have quite a big impact if the government were to change the current 3.5% interest rate that they utilize to calculate your TDSR, hence your loan quantums. If that is adjusted up to 4.5%, I did a rough calculation, it will translate to almost a $200,000 drop if you are 30-year-old. I believe if you are 30-year-old and able to take currently a $1.6 million loan, that would drop down to $1.4 million loan over 30 years. So that will impact the market quite a bit. But I wouldn't want to be in the positions of the policy makers right now, because first of all, how do you decide on doing something like that when nobody knows if this increase in interest rates is going to be long term or short term? Well, everybody says it's going to be short term, and then if it is short term, I don't think they will really want to change the TDSR, because then if they were to then adjust it down again, then that's going to be a huge pain for the financial institutions. Okay, and lastly, of course, before I go, or before I move to the next point, interesting note is that I honestly feel that $6 million 2,400 PSF penthouse, I believe it's 6 bedrooms, is a good deal. A lot of you may say I'm nuts. A lot of you may say, hey, 6 million you can buy a landed in the area, but you will not be able to buy a landed that offer you 6 bedrooms. That's obviously the first thing. And why I sort of like that particular penthouse is that it's going to offer you the kind of privacy that a landed property cannot offer you. Even if you do buy a landed property, there are quite a number of other landed property that is comparable to yours. Okay, well, albeit every single one has its own little unique attributes, but this particular penthouse will stand out from the rest. It's going to be one of a kind. Of course, it would not be an easy sell moving forward, but it gives you the flexibility to sort of decide what's the kind of price you want to sell, when you want to sell in the future. So I'm going to put it out there that I feel that, as crazy as it sounds, it looks like a good deal to me. And so, moving on to the next point really is, the questions I have, Alvin, prices keep going up like that, 2,100 PSF in Ang Mo Kio. Is it sustainable? Okay, next slide. Prices keep going up. When will it drop? We have all the scary news in the market, rising interest rates, recessions, the tech firms and all the big firms sort of holding back on hiring and whatnot. So with all of this, and the property prices going up at the rate that it has been going up, it should drop, right? It can't continue to go up forever. That's the question that people are asking. So I've been thinking real hard about how to really give you guys a clever answer to this, and a data, you know us, right? A data back, a solid answer lah. So we are not God, no, none of us are, and so which is why there is a different, I can still answer this question. So that's it. I'm going to give you guys the answer today, but not in a way that you expect it to be. Okay, why do I say that? It's because I can't exactly tell you, like when can be, the answer to when can be, the answer can be, 6 months time, 12 months time. But that's very silly because we don't know. But another way to answer when is, in what circumstances, or if something happens, then it will trigger the drop in price. I think that's a better way to answer it, right? And a deeper way to answer that question. So if you know what are the key indicators to look out for, and if those things happen, then the price will drop. I think that is even more powerful than simply tell you, maybe within the next 1 year, price will drop. Yeah. So I'm going to share with you guys and give you guys the answer. When will prices drop? Okay, and part 2, more importantly also, the next follow-up question, drop by how much? okay? Because then it will sort of make it worthwhile for you to then consider, hey, you know, is it worth waiting for that situation, that scenario to happen? Okay, and then point number 3, what does it mean for you and what can you do? What should you do? What should you look at? Okay? So first of all, right, understanding price drop. Okay? So price drops, I have sort of split them up into two very easy to understand categories. Simply short-term and long-term. Okay? Of course, short-term price drops, we all know that's bound to happen. Okay? But I don't think that's the fundamental fear of a lot of people in the market. Right? There will definitely still be people that try to time the market. Of course, if you're holding multiple properties, you're picking your investments, you have the luxury to time. But if you are looking for somewhere for own stay, you are looking to upgrade, right? You probably don't have that luxury to sort of wait. You also don't know exactly what you're waiting for. But your big concern comes if will prices drop and then stay low for the foreseeable future. And how do we look at that? Short-term price decreases are led by demand pause, right? When demand is paused. So later I will share with you in what circumstance the demand is paused and in what circumstance demand is eliminated from the market. If certain segments of demand is eliminated from the market, then yes, prices will drop and then they will remain low for quite a while, right? And later on, I'm going to share with you some of the case studies that have happened in the past, and that will, I think, give you a much clearer idea of how actually the Singapore property market works, what really drives the Singapore property market, what are some of the key indicators affecting the Singapore property market. I wouldn't touch so much about the supply side factors today, right? Primarily the demand side factors, because supply side factors are more transitionatory. For example, if a large surge in demand comes online, first thing is, yes, prices may drop because it then becomes a buyer's market. People have a lot of options to choose from. You don't have the sort of pricing power to keep pushing prices up like that. But would that cause prices to drop in the long term, right? No, because first and foremost, the fundamental psychology of the market is everybody wants to make money. Everybody wants to sell higher than the previous neighbor. The developers want to sell high because they have to make money. Your own home, your only 1 or 2 property, you want to sell high. And we have seen with all the other data that we have always been showing you that the Singapore property market sits on strong fundamentals. So supply side issues, if a large surge of supply comes onto the market, that may cause prices to halt for a short period of time, stop going up for a short period of time, maybe even drop for a short period of time, but it will not cause long-term price drops, right? So the main thing we want to look at is, in what circumstances will there lead to demand elimination from the market? Okay, so we can take a look at this chart. I think it shows us very, very nice. I will use 2 charts, right? This chart and also the next chart that sort of shows you and tells you what were the cooling measures that were put in place in the Singapore property market all the way back to the 1990s. Okay, so I bring your attention to this part. Okay, the periods where the market went on a prolonged price decrease, okay? Prolonged price decrease. You focus in on after 1997, after the Asian financial crisis, we went through 10 quarters of price drop. And also, after 2013, the institution of cooling measures, we went on 15 quarters of price drop. Okay, so I think this chart shows it pretty well, because on the top line they show what were the cooling measures that were put in place. Right, we have how do I? Okay, pardon me. Apple is not my strength. Okay, but you see over here, on the top line, they tell you what were the measures and then what did that result in, okay? And then on the bottom line, it shows you global events. at the bottom part. So which one really impacts prices in the Singapore property market the most, right? I choose to believe that the cooling measures impact prices more so than external events, okay? Because external events may lead to demand pauses, because external events create uncertainty in the market and then demand may pause. And then so, you know, when demand pause, volumes drop, sometimes people don't buy and whatnot. Okay. Next up, right, we also have this 15 quarters of price drop. So ever since the institution of anti-speculation, so actually cooling measures are not new to the market. We have had cooling measures ever since 1996, and I will total up all of that, 25 quarters of price drops after the institution of the anti-speculation cooling, anti-speculation measures coupled with the Asian financial crisis. What kind of cooling measures? I think that is also quite interesting. A lot of us today always say Singapore property market no capital gains tax, but I think for the more 老教 people, right, they actually do remember that Singapore used to have capital gains tax, right? Let's jump over there to take a look. It's more interesting that way. Do I double click to go back to the normal size and jump to the next page? Yeah, okay. Take a look at this. Before 1996, the Singapore property market was flooded with speculative demand. Huge speculation, prices were skyrocketing up very, very quickly. You know, that was the time whereby you could queue to buy a property, after that walk to the back of the queue and sell it for a higher price, right? So with all that increase, thankfully the government instituted anti-speculation cooling measures in 1996, because we all know what happened in 1997. Had they not done that, imagine if prices really were at the peak at 1997 and we had to go through the Asia financial crisis. When prices were at the peak, a lot of people would have suffered a lot more, because we all know of people that have suffered very badly in the Asia financial crisis. I think it would have impacted the market even more had the government not instituted all of this, right? LTV at that point in time was reduced to 80%. We had capital gains tax, right? But only if you sell your house in 3 years. Okay. Of course, today we have an evolution of that capital gains tax. But at that point in time, it's 100%. 67% and 33%. Basically, if you sell it within the first year, all your profit must go to the government. I sell in second year, 2/3 of your profit. Third year, 1/3 of your profit. So today's SSD actually is nothing really compared to last time. But of course, right, the kind of profits people used to make is, and because the house contents were a lot smaller, they could really like double their profits from there. Then before that, also no buyer stamp duty and also no seller's stamp duty. So the market was hit all of a sudden with quite a strong set of cooling measures at that point in time, and that sucked the demand. It sucked the speculative demand out of the market. It eliminated the speculative demand out of the market, right? And hence caused prices to drop like it did all the way down, right? So actually this drop was not because of the global financial crisis, of course, the Asian financial crisis, sorry. It was caused more so by the elimination of the demand from the market, right? Of course, it plunged even more after that, and then that's where we saw the government actually didn't really do much after that in terms of reversing the cooling measure. But then they kena another .com crash at 9/11. So after which they took out the capital gains tax, right? Capital gains tax were lifted. Okay, foreigners were allowed to take up Singapore dollar mortgages, and this one, buyers can use CPF to pay 10% of down payment from 0%. Last time, you cannot even use your CPF to buy property, right? So we all like sort of forgot, especially for those in our 30s and whatnot, but you know, those in the 40s and the 50s, you will remember all these things associated with the market. And last time the prices still went up so much when people couldn't use CPF, right? Stamp duty rates were lowered by 30%. LTV was adjusted back up from 80 to 90%. Okay, so you see what the government did when prices were low for long periods of time, they chose to reverse back on their measures. But when they did that, it resulted in quite a fair bit of speculative demand coming back into the market, which then brings us back to what happened over here after the global financial crisis of 08-09, where a lot of liquidity came into the market, allowing a lot of people to start speculating in the market again. That caused the prices to shoot up like that. And then what happened? Okay, after which you come back to this one. So you see, in the 25 quarters of decrease from 1996 all the way until 2003, the government chose to reverse away some of the anti-speculative measures, allowing for more demand to come back into the market. And I didn't put in the supply side things, but at that point in time, the market was also sitting on a lot of supply. The developers can en-bloc the land and they can hoard the land and whatnot. So there was a lot of supply in the market as well. So you see, after which in 2013, okay, that was where they instituted TDSR and all the other cooling measures, again stripping and eliminating the speculative demand from the market, because that's where we went from 90% LTV back down to 80% and today at 75%. That's where we first saw ABSD. Right? Last time you could buy 2, 3, 4 properties, no extra tax. All you need to do is pay stamp duty. And the nail in the coffin was the total debt servicing ratio, as you can see from here. After June 2013, that was the nail in the coffin that resulted in the 15 quarters of price decrease. Okay, if you follow our live the last week, we also drew another indicator to share with you why the prices were so anemic in that period of time. Another key indicator on the HDB side of things, right? Maybe we can put that link into the description as well for you to go over to take a look. The recessions one. Okay, so right. Also, in conclusion, what am I trying to say? The property prices in Singapore, they may drop if demand is paused, right, due to external factors, due to maybe another round of cooling measures, impacts on the market, uncertainty and whatnot. But for prices to drop and remain low in the long term, right? Because I mean, personally for me, do I care if the prices were to drop in the next 1 to 2 quarters? No. But will I be scared if, let's say, I don't know, will prices come up or remain low for the foreseeable future, and that will start to concern me. So for those of you listening, you may want to then just put that into your head and segment out the different fears and to make sure our fears are well reasoned, so that you can then go out and pick up some of the important data points to then allay those fears. Okay? I'm going on and on, but let me just move on to the next important thing, right? So when will prices drop? I'm going to give you the answer split up between HDB and private. Okay, so after the 2013 cooling measures, yes, we see the TDSR written there, but the one that really hit the HDB prices the most is mortgage servicing ratio. Last time, you want to buy private or you want to buy HDB, the loan evaluation is the same. After 2013, you want to buy HDB or brand new EC, they only allow you to use 30% of your monthly income as part of the calculation for your loan eligibility, whereas private at that point in time was 60%, today is at 55% of your monthly combined household income to service debt, which essentially means the HDB financing is half of the private market. And so over here, if they make it even stricter, okay, that will start to remove demand from the HDB segment because people will be like, it's going to be so much easier for me to take a loan to buy a private property, which is something that they are seeing in the EC market right now, because it's actually easier for you to buy a private property, be it resale, be it new, than buy a brand new EC because of mortgage servicing ratio and because of eligibility criteria, okay? Which is then my first point, okay? I sort of jumped the gun to the second point. But on the first point, changes in eligibility criteria, if you look back, that was also one of the reasons that resulted in prices dropping for the HDB after 2013. And it only really staged a mini resurgence in the last 1 to 2 years because of what is happening in the world right now. In the absence of which I do not, or I would not have expected HDB prices to pick up in the last 1 or 2 years. Why? Eligibility criteria. Last time, before 2013, or between the multiple rounds of cooling measures to try to hold the market back between 2011 to 2013, PRs, when they got their PR, right, they could buy a HDB immediately. Coupled with the financing rules, it will be the same to buy either if you buy a HDB or private. So a lot of them in the end chose to buy HDBs because it's the more affordable option. The loan is the same. But today, PRs, after getting their PR, they have to continue renting for 3 years because they have a 3-year cool-off period before they are then eligible to buy resale HDBs. Okay, so put yourself in the position of a PR couple, have been renting for easily 10 years, okay? And now you finally got your PR, but you then still have to continue renting for 3 years. And very simply, let's say you pay $2,500 a month in rental. Then you times another 3 years, there's going to be 90,000 more further expense before you can then go in to buy a HDB at, let's say, a $500,000 budget. But if you were to decide to go for private, right, you can buy it immediately, number one, right? Utilize the potential expense, that $90,000 to down pay the private property and start paying off on your own loan, start paying down on your own asset instead of paying somebody else's asset at a $1 million budget, because remember, MSR, TDSR, it's half of that, right, which have driven a lot of the demand and eliminated a lot of the demand from the HDB resale market to the private market, resulting in the long-term decrease in the prices. Okay, now you start to see the picture over there. Okay, and what else will cause the HDB prices to come down? Because of what has happened in the world in the last couple of years, I can't say the word, because if I say the word right, YouTube will block my video. But we all know what happened in the year, the P word and the C, the P word and the C word. Okay, if BTO wait times were to come back to normal, because currently it's like 5, 6, 7 years, right? And a lot of young couples just don't want to wait so long, and hence they have moved into the HDB resale market. But if the wait times were to then shorten back to the 3 to 4 years, for example, I see the demand being again transferred over to the BTO market, because everybody knows when you buy a BTO, it's subsidized. And there's a pretty good chance you're going to be making money out of the BTO as opposed to the resale market. So for those of you listening or watching the video, please do not see what has happened in the HDB market in the last 1 or 2 years and sort of assume that that is going to be the trend in the future. I do not honestly think so, because of all these demand supply factors last time, moving forward, everything considered. Okay, so when will HDB prices start to drop back down again? When BTO wait times are reduced back, sucking away the demand of first timers back into the BTO market and out of the resale market. Another reason that HDB demand will be eliminated is if, of course, the government starts to sell them at a shorter lease period, which is possible, because the fact is that the land prices will always have to go up. Okay, but yet again, if it keeps going up, but they want to restrict and they don't want people to over leverage on themselves, right, to buy the particular property, one of the options, and we have seen this across the world, which is to sell the properties at a shorter lease to try and keep the prices low, okay, or affordable. right? Either that or longer MOP, and we have already seen that happen in the prime location housing schemes, right? We have the 10-year MOP, and we have the eligibility criteria when you subsequently sell that property in the future as well. So all these are draconian rules designed to hold back HDB prices. And if you have even the slightest bit of wanting to have your property act as sort of appreciating asset for yourself, if the rules become overly draconian, you will then decide to say, hey, you know what, maybe I'll just go private instead. And that again will eliminate demand from the HDB market, causing prices to remain low for the long term, right? It has already more or less been eliminated, right, or pushed into the private market because of all the MSR and eligibility criteria over in 2013. The demand is artificially increased in the last 1 or 2 years, causing the prices to come up. And after the BTO wait times drop back down, I see the trend reverting back to the decreasing trend from 1.3 to 1.19. All right. Next up, the private residential market. Maybe more applicable. I think a lot of our viewers are in the private market, or at least looking to upgrade into the private market. So, key question, what will cause private residential prices to drop and remain low in the long term? Right? How or what might potentially eliminate demand from the market? Number one, which is also obviously a extension on the last point on the previous slide. If BTO upgrading regulations change, okay, for example, right, the government wants to make it a lot more tedious for you to upgrade from a HDB, right? But then again, you know, the government needs HDB resale flats in the market to sort of cater to the not so high earning PRs, and of course couples that do not want to wait for their BTO. So they sort of need to ensure that there's still a good supply of HDB resale flats into the market. So the chances of point 1 happening, I believe, is very, very low. Another reason why the chance of that happening is very, very low, I think this is probably their large niche effort. I honestly wouldn't rule them out, because I really see the private supply being very, very low for at least the next couple of years. And if the government doesn't, you know, catch that well and release sufficient supply into the market, that may cause a huge sudden spike in property prices, because we have a good number of BTOs in the next couple of years. And if you continue watching the video, I'm going to give you where those BTOs, how many of those BTOs, and where are they located at later on in the video, okay? That one very important if you want to pick out locations with that may potentially have a lot of upgraders looking to buy in the future. So yeah, chances of that happening, I don't think very, very high, but if it does, it's definitely going to impact prices, because it then eliminates perhaps the single biggest chunk of buyers in the private residential market. Next up, of course, if the institutional capital gains tax start to come into play, right, that will eliminate the investment demand into the private residential market, right? So that one, sort of the same thing. If the government say no more decoupling, they have stopped decoupling over in HDB. If prices again keep shooting up, they may then start to close off loopholes. We have seen them close off the trust loophole, or at least not really close off, make it harder. You know, if they do something with decoupling, that of course will also eliminate demand from the market, because people may then just go, you know what, we just buy that one in Singapore already. It's so difficult to buy a second one. They may then just move the funds overseas. But in the eyes of the government, do they actually want that to happen? Probably no. They ideally want the citizens to keep their money in Singapore and have a vested interest in Singapore, as opposed to have a huge chunk of your money overseas, and then the overseas government earn all our stamp duties, whatnot, right? I think they prefer that they keep the money in Singapore, obviously. not then compromising or causing prices to go up too much. All right, so all in all, why do I say I don't think prices will go into a period of extended decrease is because I don't see the chances of these three things happening at least in the foreseeable future. Okay, because there's a lot of other things the government can do to hold back prices. For example, right, like just now what we mentioned, adjust TDSR. So why, you might say, hey Elvin, why you say these three things will affect or cause prices to drop over the long term, but if they adjust TDSR, or even if they adjust LTV, it won't cause prices to go and to drop for a long period of time? It's because the market already is aware of those measures, TDSR, LTV. Changing that will pause demand. Okay, so people will say, okay, then now maybe I take a step back, sort of do my sums, see where things go. But if there's a fundamental need, they will then still come back into the market, right? Because at the end of the day, the owner-occupied demand will always still be there. It's more of maybe the investment demand. So if the investment demand is stripped out, eliminated from the market, that is where prices may remain low for sustainable long-term future. And changing LTV and changing TDSR won't really eliminate investment demand. Basically, that's how I would answer that question. Okay, so you know, maybe put your thoughts into the comments. Let me know if you have any questions. This is quite deep. But I feel this is a better answer to the questions of like, hey, you know, when will prices drop and whatnot, okay? Next up, right, we will move to drop by how much, okay? So for this, I refer to my favorite report, the MAS Financial Stability Report, chart 3.7. Again, once speculative demand has been eliminated from the market, the government has managed to sort of narrow the price flux of the property price index to within this plus minus 5% quarter-on-quarter difference, right? It used to be quarter-on-quarter up 5%, down, or maybe 1 year up 5%, 10%, next year down 15%, then up another 15%. You know, that's not good for people's heart rate. For those of you who follow the channel, you have seen this chart before. So with all the cooling measures in place, right, the flux or the increase and decrease in the property market, and also the decrease even if it does happen, you're not going to see that 15-20% like what we used to see pre-cooling measures, pre-2013, right? Because the Singapore property market today is very, very cash heavy, very low leveraged, right? And if prices were to drop significantly, the government can always turn back, and we have seen them do that before, turn back certain cooling measures to prop up demand. Yeah? Again, right, then now we want to understand price drop, okay? Because everybody, it's very easy to say, I want to wait for price to drop, I want to wait for price to drop. So how do you define price drop? I feel a lot of people see price drop as the property price index price drop, right? Quarter on quarter, right? If it comes down, yay, good. But does that translate into an actual price drop? Does that actually translate to you being able to get something cheap from the market? I'm just going to make it very easy to understand. Today, so it just amuses me when people say that and say, I want to wait for prices to drop. Oh, great, right? My answer to that is, yeah, great. If the property price index the next month drop 5%, good, right? Then you say, yeah, good, then I will come into the market and buy because I want to buy when there's blood on the streets. Oh, okay. If the next month property price index drop 5%, can I come and buy your property for a discount? They will say, no. Yeah. So, you know, just to put things into perspective, sometimes, you know, when you see things one perspective, you want to then put on the hat of the people on the other side of the fence, yeah? Again, because we also know that the speculative demand is very, very low in the market today, standing at 2.6% speculative demand. So people are either owner-occupiers or they are investors. Okay, if they are investors, right, they are invested for the long term. Okay, they are not over leveraged. They will not be forced to sell their properties If interest rates go up for an extra $100 to $200, they are not, because when they buy that one, they already down pay 25% already. And they have taken their loan on already TDSR that has already formed a buffer for them. Not to say there will not be fire sales on and off, but it's so rare nowadays. Even the agents like ourselves cannot catch such deals. If the deals happen like that, it likely will be snapped up by family members even before it comes out into the agent's network. And then if you are outside of the agent's network, you can only imagine how hard it will be to pick up something like that. So my advice really is then to learn how to then spot, instead of trying to go for that unicorn fire sale thing that may not happen. Learn how to analyze and pick up underappreciated, right, under the radar properties, which if you continue in this video, I'm going to share with you guys later on, right? But let's finish off on this slide. Okay, so you see, how does property price index work? Property price index is retrospective, right? It's always looking back at the past, which is why I can tell you in the next quarter, you're going to see the OCR property price index go up, okay, because of AMO and because of Lentor Modern. But is that really an indicator? Obviously, right, it's somewhat of an indicator, but that has no relation to actual expectations on the ground, which is why buyers, when they see price index drop, they expect everyone, right, to sort of adjust their prices, right? But you know, sellers' expectations may be different, right? Which is why I have this sort of illustration. So the expectations on the of buyers is that, you know, blood on the street. So on the left side, right, they think it's the Great Singapore. It's going to be the Great Singapore Sale, yay, right? Go shopping in the market. But what's going to be the reality? Which is something that we have seen many times. We have seen that in during circuit breaker, right, where with a lot of uncertainty in the market, what do sellers do? They adjust their price. If they really want to sell and need to sell, they adjust their price marginally, right? Was 2 million, maybe now 1.99 million, marginally, okay? If not, it will be the bottom right hand poster would be just take their properties out of the market and hold and wait. And you know, if you follow us, you know all the data to show that the Singapore property market as a whole has extremely strong holding power, okay? Because you see, another good example, if an external shock were to hit the market, like what happened a couple, 2 years ago with circuit breaker and whatnot, the government can hold pause on your mortgage payments. If they pause your mortgage payments for 1 year, nobody will have to force sell their house because you don't have to pay the mortgage, right? So you just kind of remember that situation lah, and remember government's objective is not for prices to drop significantly, right? They, in times of already a lot of uncertainty, they try not to allow fear to take over the market, and especially your fundamental, most important, single biggest asset. Okay, next up, let's take a look at some case studies and to put all these things into perspective, okay? Right, because I said, right, then what does it mean for you? And I want to go to, I use 2 examples since today we are in the OCR. 2 examples, right? Number 1, Mandarin Gardens, and number 2, Hyde Park Residences. And what will we look at? We will look at what happened in 08-09. Remember, we went through over here we went through over here, 08-09, yeah? 4 consecutive quarters of decline, right? And declining 24.9%, yeah? And then also let's take a look at Q1 2020, right? The albeit the one only dropped for 1 quarter. Let's see what does it mean for you, right? So if we just look at like that, you'll be, right, awesome. Q2 08 to Q1 09, excellent time to buy. Could you have gotten anything in Mandarin Gardens? Now let's jump to that. Okay, over here. Okay. the reason why I use Mandarin Gardens is because number one, it's old enough, it has plenty of data, we can go all the way back and see what happened in '08, and it's like, the prices have already somewhat stabilized over there already lah, and it's like just a easy look, easy, just using Mandarin Gardens is big enough. It's like I don't really know what's the correct word for it lah. Like a small little case study of what's going to happen in the whole market. That word just hasn't come to me yet. When it comes to me, I'll let you all know. And then we look at High Park, which is a little bit more recent. It's taking a while to load, but it has finally loaded. All right, let's come to, hopefully we can see the price trends coming up, and I want to see the, let's let Mandarin Gardens load again. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's start off first, right, with High Park residences. Okay, so you see over here, what did we wanted to see? We wanted to see how many transactions happened. So High Park, right, it wasn't TOP yet in '08, '09, but we can take a look at what happened between Q1 2020 to Q2 2020, right smack in the middle of circuit breaker and all those things. Could you, right, because it indicates that we were in a recession, we were in a period of property price index drop. Could you have gotten a fire sale, a good deal in that market? So we see all the way over here, 2020, Q1 2020. So notice what happened. Did the average prices drop, right? Before that, it was hovering at about 1,003, right? Hovering about 1,003. And then in that particular quarter, did it drop? It didn't drop, right? The transactions then became very, very sparse because you just have to look at the number of dots, right? We average out the transactions over here, the polynomial trend line, if we can see this, right? You see, notice that how it was still going upwards. And even after the results come out, it was still trending upwards, right? So you don't see prices dropping significantly in the market, which was what I said. People just, in the end, decide not to sell their house. If not, they do adjust their expectations a little bit. But most of it's only if they are investors, if they are owner-occupiers, a lot of the time they may choose not to do so lah. Unless, of course, the property they want to buy, the prices drop even more, and then they feel that, maybe I drop just 10 to 20,000, I can jump over, but it's not like for a fire sale purpose. Okay, so if you're out there waiting for something like that to happen, please be realistic, because at the end of the day, the person that will be losing out is yourself. I will try to see all the data for this. You can see the thing. Right, Mandarin Gardens, the chart is a lot more clear, right? Because you notice all these lines, all these dots, because the development is so big, right? On average, we always see plenty of transactions, right? Look at how dense those dots are. But in the periods that we highlighted earlier, the periods of Q2 '08 to Q1 '09, notice how, yes, right, prices did drop slightly, but notice how the dots became extremely sparse, meaning the transactions became few and far between. Again, if you then jump over to the start, Q1, Q2 of '08, of 2020, very, very sparse dots. But when the market comes up, then the dots become a lot more dense, right? It's a very clear indicator. When prices drop, when times are no good, when owners can't hit the price expectations, it's very easy to understand because just put yourself in their shoes, right? This is your one and only asset. Maybe you use 2 assets. If the times are not good, what would you do, right? Most likely you will just hold the particular properties and not sell it. And across the board, you can pick up any of the other properties, and this is what you are going to see. Because again, nobody likes to sell their house at a price that they don't reasonably want to expect the prices, okay? So of course, once you zoom out in the long term, they tend to follow the property price index, but when they do drop, you also notice that a lot of the times the dots are become a lot more sparse. But is that truly a fire sale? Because these guys that then adjust it downwards, okay, they may have bought it at a long time ago, much cheaper price. But will you be happy because you got it cheap over here? Because you see, yes, if you were in December 07 and you have bought it, right, you may slap yourself, right? Because you say, hey, maybe in Feb 09 I would have gotten a better deal. First thing is, could you have bought anything at all? Second thing, you're not going to sell it that time anyway, right? You will hold it out and then the prices then came up. In the long term, it still worked out well. For you, okay? Let's then move forward back to presentation slides over here. Move forward. So what should you do? Okay, number one, understand the difference between demand pause versus demand elimination, right? Because that will then translate into short-term price decrease versus long-term price decrease, right? If you really are concerned about long-term price decrease, then you will be thinking about all the factors that I've mentioned. Something like that happen, will that eliminate demand from the market? The only demand in the market left is investor demand. Yes, foreigner demand, but that only takes about 20% of the market. Next up is investment demand. The one that may be stripped out really would be investment demand, right? But we have seen, even with an increase in ABSD from 0 to 3 to 7 to 12 to 17, that demand is still there. Okay, because of course there's ways to move around it, which is why I say that demand will be eliminated significantly if of course decoupling is closed off, if capital gains tax is instituted. Yeah, okay, so right, I've answered point 1, point 2, understand the key differences and which one impacts you. Okay, so if you are looking for own stay, something a bit more long term, should you be concerned about the short term price drops? No, right? Would the government want the prices to drop over the long term? Also no, which is why would they do things to strip out demand, knowing that the market has a really strong fundamental, which is why I've angled it and presented in this way to share from another angle. Because of course, if I tell you the price is not going to drop, everybody say, how would you know? Everybody say, of course, you're an agent, you'll say this kind of thing. I'm backing up with past things that have happened in the past, actual data, actual numbers, okay? Right, next up, if it does drop, by how much? We have seen also the charts that yes, now within a band of plus minus 5%, it picks back up really quickly. Next one, is it worth the wait? If it does drop, a lot of the times the volumes evaporate as well. Nobody likes to sell their house for cheap. Will we see fire sales like the times we used to see it? The answer is no, because the market is today at a very drastically different, we have drastically different fundamentals, and there's very little speculative demand from the market. Of course, if you're a speculator, you have over leveraged, anything happen, right, you will sell the place for cheap, cut your losses and whatnot. But those days are the past, which is why we do not see those drastic fluxes anymore. Okay, any better alternative? Yes, right, which is why you are here today to see then how can we spot profitable transactions, what kind of characteristics do they hold. And personally, instead of trying to catch the fire sales, I rather guide you guys on how to find underappreciated, under the radar, profitable properties so that you don't have to wait, right? You don't have to second guess and try to be a fortune teller and tell the future, right? Just make sure all those things are set, right? And you are more or less good to go. And that brings me to finally starting on our dissecting of profitable properties. We have finished the RCR, we have finished the CCR. And then when I was doing this, I realized I had so much to share that I have to split it up into 2 parts, right? So this is not going to be end of our 3-part series, so our 3-part series has evolved now into a 4-part series. And for today, I'm just going to focus on, if you take the Singapore map and then you split it in half, the east side first. And then next month, I'm going to touch on the west side, okay? But west siders, please don't leave yet, right? Because you're still going to learn some of the things over here that can apply to the west, huh? So where exactly is the OCR, right? Of course, the OCR makes up the biggest size across the 3 different categorizations. We have part of District 5, part of District 14, part of District 15, the whole of District 16, 17, 18, 19, part of District 20, Ang Mo Kio, right? Ang Mo is in the OCR, okay? But I believe if you go below the park, you will be then in the RCR. We have Upper Bukit Timah, Beauty World. Those areas, again, borderline RCR, OCR. But the whole of District 21, if your property is classified District 21, unless your property is classified District 5, there's a chance you might be either OCR or RCR. But whole of District 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28 is the OCR. Okay, so now how do we, or what are the kind of questions that we want to have answered in the different case studies that I will share today. So of course, I will not cover all the districts. I picked out the districts and the case studies that will sort of help us answer some of these key questions over here, right? Which is more profitable, freehold versus 99? I think this is very interesting, a question. Of course, it's an age-old question. But why is it interesting is because if you followed us for the RCR and the CCR dissection, some of because in the recent years, right, it's very much the concept is 99 will make more money. But we have seen in the RCR and CCR examples, and in certain cases, actually the freehold can do as well, or maybe sometimes even better than the 99 years. But can that, or does that apply also in the OCR, right? We have some case studies for you. Does proximities to school matter, right? Basically the same questions that we were asking for the CCR and the RCR videos, we're asking them also in the OCR videos, and because these are also some of the key questions that as either investors or owner-occupiers, they are asking as well. Another age-old question, does development size matter? New or resale, which one is more profitable? Does proximity to MRTs matter? Is size important? And this one more applicable, this last one more applicable for the OCR, right? Is resale EC a good value proposition, a good investment? Because we're going to see a huge influx of MOP ECs into the market within the next 1 to 1.5, 2 years. Okay? Now let's get started with probably the biggest district over in the east, which is District 19, at the least, the district with the highest percentage of the population staying inside them. I think, I don't have the exact data, but based on its sheer size, I think so. Right, District 19 comprises of Sengkang, Punggol, Hougang, Kovan, Serangoon, and Lorong Asu. I am focusing us into Punggol. Why? Okay? Because I feel Punggol has a good case study for resale ECs in the resale market, or MOP ECs in the resale market versus full private condos. That is the reason why I want to answer that question. And also, does proximity to MRT matter? Because we have Watertown over there, sort of a good case study for us. So if you zoom in, right, I have classified them in terms of, again, annualized capital gains, right? But bear in mind, this chart may be a little bit skewed because you notice the top few are all ECs, right? Of course, because they have bought much cheaper, their percentage annualized gains is always a lot higher. But what we want to see also is that the full private condos in Punggol have also done well with close to 200 transactions, 100 plus transactions. They still managed to average out 3.7%, 3.3%, 2.4% percentage annualized. You also do notice the percentage of profitable transactions is very, very high in the OCR. Okay? But let me then just shrink this list down to Privé, Treasure Trove, Park Centrals, and then Watertown. So Watertown in the bottom part of the list, on the bottom of the list. But let me share with you one of the case studies of how one of our clients actually is today sitting on a real, on close to 30% return on equity for his investment into Watertown, and why we picked Watertown as one of the investments for him, the thought process that went behind it. And let me then just come back to H prop. Over here, okay, so I've added in River Isles, basically most of the, only excluding Flow Residences, most of the private, full private condos in Punggol, right, and Privé. Why I chosen Privé? Because it's one of the older ECs in Punggol, and ECs that have transactions of people that bought it at MOP and now have managed to sell it out into the resale market already. And as we can see from here, Privé still beats out thanks to the profitability of the first owners, right? But this is the rest of it. So some of the things that we can see over here is that in terms of PSF, okay, in terms of PSF, the ECs will never sort of surpass the full private condos. That gap will always be there, but of course ECs tend to then catch up to the full private condos. Even though the private condos can sometimes be very, very close to the ECs, in certain cases, being right beside a full condo being beside an EC may serve as a disadvantage to you, as we have seen in Pasir Ris with Livia and Belisa side by side. Livia seems to be unable to really make good gains because it's suppressed by the EC by its side. But over here, it seems like Park Centrals has continued to perform well despite being beside Privé. They basically both have benefited and increased in price. Why? Because Punggol has such a strong number of upgraders to sort of supplement this this supply in the resale market, private property market over in Punggol. Okay. And I want to bring our attention over to some of the transactions and profitable transactions, and what can we learn from some of those points over there. I'm coming back here into the slides again. Oops. Into the slides again. Right, as we can see, the ECs, right, will not catch up with the full private condos. They will always be below the full private condos. Okay, the most profitable transactions, I've circled out a few. First one over here, 65 Punggol Central. So this is Privé. This is Watertown. 65 Punggol Central. But I want to first talk about the middle one, which is 37 Punggol Field. Okay, 883 square feet is a 2-bedroom in Privé, right? Bought at MOP. In 2018, sold, is it this year? Yeah, this year. So it's about 4-year holding period. They managed to make a $225,000 profit, percentage annualized gains of 6.4%. But if we do calculate properly, this being a two-bedder, if the seller were a investor, they would have also garnered at least another, let's say the rental lah, conservatively maybe $2,300, okay, times 12 times 4. That's about $110,000, adding on to that $225,000 profit, total of $335,000 profit. How much did the person actually put in to down pay that particular property? I have calculated over here, and I estimate it to be around let me calculate that again. He bought it at 963 PSF for 883 square feet. He bought it at about 850,000. Let's say we have a 28% down payment. He invested 238,000. He took out 111 in rental and 225 in profits, 336. That works out to be 38% annualized return on invested amount. Return on equity, 38% annualized, assuming he rented it out. Even if he didn't rent it out, then he still made about $225,000 in profit. Why I picked this particular line as sort of a case study is because number one, the people tend to be have that concept, right? That I'm giving the first owner. Yes, the first owner did make a huge chunk of profit, but you can still make quite a reasonable good chunk of profit over here, and this profit will beat out quite a fair number of new launches in the market. Right. Well, yes, new launches are a good way to make profit as well. This is actually another not so bad way to make profit also. Okay. But of course, you have to pick carefully. You have to really understand the market to sort of find this kind of under the radar, underappreciated properties, so to speak. Because you know what? It's not one that immediately comes to your mind if you want to make an investment. It's not one that immediately, it's not obviously the most sexy sort of investment, like walking into a nice spanking show flat and buying a new development lah, right? But just take a look, right? Really solid profits. We have Watertown, okay? So this list is ranked by annualized, right? The most profitable transactions. I didn't sort of look at the first two because they were ECs that were transacted pre-MOP lah. So not so fair to really go and look at those. I picked up the few that were open market transactions, right? Not pre-MOP transactions. So we have Watertown, the 119 square feet Watertown, which is the premium 3 bedrooms. They have also yielded really good profits. They bought at 1,100 PSF in 2015, 2016. At that point in time, I remember everybody say Watertown is crazy expensive. Yes, it was expensive at that point in time. Again, come back to the whole, remember we have done several videos on integrated developments and whatnot. So I like to tell people, because we have Jalan Anak Bukit coming up, we have Lentor Modern coming up. When integrated developments launch, they tend to launch at pretty high price. What you want to sort of think about when you want to see whether you can make profits out of integrated developments really is to, number one, ask yourself if you have the holding power, because the owners of Watertown did go through a period of very, very bad performance. Okay, they only managed to make this out of profit very, very recently. Can you hold out until then, right? Do you know how to analyze the market? Can you visualize the exit when you purchase those properties? Is there a strong enough buyer pool to buy from you when you sell in the future? Okay, I know for a fact, right, pretty decent, 1,004, 1,005 PSF in today's market, 3 bedroom premium right on top of the MRT. Finally, it has looked cheap. finally it looks affordable and it looks reasonable, then naturally the market will then start to come in. So it's fine to buy at benchmark prices, right? AMO new benchmark prices. Will they still make? Yes, they will make. The market has to then slowly come to that level and people want to buy it for a particular reason. 37 Punggol Field again is another Privé unit. This one is 775, also a 2-bedroom. The guy make $158,000. Again, an excellent investment, 6.3% annualized, excluding potential rental profits. So for first timers, right, I would really recommend you, if you feel you are being squeezed in terms of options, like should I buy a resale HDB, brand new condos at this kind of price point, you basically have no options to buy already. A resale EC actually is a really decent value proposition for you to look out for. Can you still make money? You can still make money, as shown over here. Okay, 37, 33 Punggol Field, those are Privé units bought in the resale market, having paid the first owners a good chunk of profit. They still manage to make profit on their own. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about in terms of Privé, right, resale is good value proposition. I personally feel yes, still good value proposition. But let me share with you another more interesting case study, and this is an actual case study that we executed for our own client. He bought a 807 square feet unit at Watertown. I'm going to share with you the floor plan in the next slide. But in this one, I wanted to show, bought in January 2021. In March 2022, a similar unit was sold at $1.2 million. So he actually is sitting on close to $200,000 in paper gains. Okay, and we expect the rental gains, right, the rental income over the 3 years that we hold, because we have rented it out without vacancy from day one. Expect to collect about $120,000. He's invested about $305,000. So we are looking more or less conservative, because I'm taking the price as of today. He has another 2 more years, another 1.5 more years to run on his SSD. We are looking at easily a 35% per annum return on equity. Okay, of course, you may say, in hindsight, it's good, it's easy to see, right? It's easy for you to say. But maybe what is a more worthwhile discussion to have, right, is to share with you guys what we sort of learned, what went behind the evaluation of this particular purchase, and how, after learning from all this, we can adopt this for future purchases and future analysis. Okay, so it was, in hindsight, it looks excellent, great investment. But what I want to share with you is, if you look at the floor plan over here, what is the number one objection people will always give, right? Number one is that it is basically a 1-bedroom, because this bedroom 1 is a loft and it's not closed off. Okay, of course you can then close it off and form a 2-bedroom unit. But the big objection people have over here is open concept kitchen. Okay, it's an open concept kitchen. Secondly, only 807 square feet in Punggol. Who's going to buy from you in the future? But how we decided to take a look at is considering its quantum. At that point in time, at $1 million, have we go to look at the other new launches in the area, for example, other some form of investments, we would have been only able to buy something significantly smaller, maybe a 2-bed, 1-bath. For example, maybe cannot even buy a 2-bed, 1-bath anymore, because by the time I think prices have gone to 1.1 to 1.2 million. So then we chanced upon this particular property. It was selling at lower than what the owners bought at our unicorn property. But then when we say, right, cheaper than what the guy bought at, but is it so straightforward? It's open concept kitchen. Is there the question we were having with our clients, if the guy, after holding so many years, still have to sell for loss, do you think it was going to work out for us or not? Right? So it wasn't as straightforward, in hindsight very straightforward, but it wasn't that straightforward at that point in time. But after really sitting down and analyzing it, what can we do? It can potentially be converted into almost a 3-bedroom. Okay, 1 bedroom over here, the master bedroom. Bedroom 1 we partition off is a 2nd bedroom. The study also can partition off to be sort of a store, if not a helper's room. As a matter of fact, our current tenant over here is a family of 4, adult couple with 2 young kids. Okay, so it is acceptable to the vast majority of folks that are staying. Of course, it's not the most ideal thing for families looking to upgrade, but it's really a quantum play, because at $1.2 million now in the market, what are you looking at? You're not looking at something, a potential compact 3-bedroom in the on top of the MRT, right? So it really was a quantum comparison now. Could it get any cheaper than that? It's quite unlikely. Even if we have bought at $1 million and we sold 3 years later at $1 million, we will have still profited based on the rental gains, because it's on top of the MRT. No worries about renting it out. And then we made a calculated guess because of the quantums that's floating around in the market. So don't focus too much, because if we were focused on the PSF, is at that point that we bought, it was the highest PSF in the whole of Punggol. Okay, it's still at the highest PSF in the whole of Punggol. Then how do you then convince yourself that it can reach the next PSF? The way to do it is then take a macro perspective and understand the quantums around the market and where do they stand at that point in time. Okay, so in hindsight, it always looks easy, but I really wanted to share the thought process going on behind it, visualizing the exit. So when we sell in 1.5 years' time, who are we looking to sell to, right? I honestly feel upgraders may potentially buy it, right? Because of course, we will not cater to all the upgraders. Those that want the more standard ones, 1033 square feet, and whatnot, they can, right? They will buy the resale ECs, Privé, Twin Waterfalls, Ecopolitan. But this will cater to those who want good location, right? Integrated development. And if you just look at the numbers, some people do write off Watertown because they feel it's very, very busy. But if you take the lift up, you will notice the place is very, very different. One good thing we have going for Watertown is its size, the size of the development. Like the size of the bedroom is also very, very nice. You can put in king size bed, 2 side tables, and a study table inside the bedrooms one. So designed by, I believe it's Frasers, which is why they have really, really good layouts as well. So exit is quite strong. And we can visualize the exit together. So you need to be able to visualize your exit before you buy into the property, and thankfully the paper profits have materialized faster than we sort of expected. But even if it doesn't, right, the rental profits would have been decent, and then we will exit in the long term, because in Punggol MRT, across that big patch beside Punggol MRT, that is classified for a future integrated development. So when we plan out for our clients, it's like, okay, in 3 years, if we can make, great, right? Worst case, at least we still have the rental to cover. If not, we'll just hold it until the next integrated development comes up, the overall price point in that whole area comes up, and then we will decide from there. Okay, but I don't think we need to look so far already lah. We can move on to the next one pretty soon. Moving on, okay, Kovan condos, right? That is the next case study over in District 19. Why did I pick Kovan, okay, and not Sengkang? Because you notice I skipped a couple of MRTs down to Kovan. Kovan has a very nice variety of condos to allow us to really use them as a good case study. We have Freehold, we have 99, we have new, we have old, we have big development, we have small development. Because in Punggol and Sengkang, especially in Sengkang, the condos are very, very similar. So we can't really learn a lot out of a Sengkang case study lah. So let's take a look at Kovan condo performances. The best performing condo in Kovan is Kovan Melody, right beside the MRT. Okay, so if you take a look at this, right, it answers quite a few questions. This one table, right? Does development size matter? Freehold versus 99, new versus resale, all of which we use this particular case study to answer. So if we just look at Kovan Melody, right, TOP in 2006, right, but the best performing property in Kovan. The Minton, right? The Minton, as a matter of fact, for the age, is very, very close to Kovan Residences. But you notice the Minton actually does better than Kovan Residences. But Kovan Residences is also beside the MRT. So on this note, is being beside the MRT important? It's sort of a yes and no answer. Right? Kovan Melody and the Minton is not really an apple-to-apple comparison. I would compare the Minton with Kovan Residences. The Minton is quite a fair bit further away. It's closer to Serangoon MRT. But that said, Minton, I will put the reason why Minton outperformed Kovan Residences down to the fact that it is a larger development, double the size of Kovan Residences, being one of the main reasons why it's beat Kovan Residences in terms of the return rate. Then Freehold versus 99, we look at this table, right? It is super duper obvious what is better in District 19. 99 years, quite handily beat out all the freehold properties. The only one that somehow still managed to beat Kovan Regency is Fontaine Perry. I am quite a fan of Fontaine Perry because all the units have private lift. It's really quite nice, quaint area. Fontaine Perry, again, is another reason why it's not super important to be beside the MRT because it is very, very far inside, is situated in the landed estate. Kovan Regency is just a 3 to 4 minute walks to the MRT, cannot beat Fontaine Perry. But then again, Fontaine Perry cannot beat Stars of Kovan, Kovan Residences, Minton, Kovan Melody over there lah. It only beat Kovan Regency. But the rest of the freehold in the Kovan area, the performance is very, very far away. If you can look at it, it's like half of the equivalent 99-year development. So that is super duper clear over in District 19. Now, question is why? Okay, because you notice all these freehold ones are not super small. They are not really like boutique kind of freehold developments. Okay, and if you really look at their PSF, it's also not crazily higher than the freehold properties. So, but for those of you who are familiar with this area, the layouts at Bliss at Kovan, Promenade at Pelican and Tri-Leaf are nowhere near the kind of layouts you will find at Kovan Melody, and especially at the Minton. What does that tell me? Again, one of the questions we ask, does size matter? The size matters a lot more in the OCR. Why? Because people's main focus in the OCR is comfort and buying for their own stay. At the end of the day, they will prioritize their comfort level and size above leasehold, freehold status and whatnot. And I'm seeing an increasing trend like that. And so increasingly, people are focusing more on the product size of the development, sort of facilities they get, as opposed to being overly obsessed with the leasehold and freehold status. And that is why we have a result like that, whereby the freehold versus 99 handily beat out the freehold over in the Kovan area. Okay, next up, I'm jumping back to the comparisons over to age prop and really answer this whole new versus resale discussion over here. Okay, let's see, we can see over here. Dun. Right, so what I did, I think probably there's a pretty good chance some of you watching this are owners of Florence residences, and so when I talk about Kovan, it sort of piques your interest. How is that going to relate to the performance over at Florence? Okay, and so which is why I have put out Forest Woods, Minton, Stars of Kovan, Regency, and Florence, and sort of see what can we derive out of the price performances. Okay. So you see the price chart over here. Let's start off first with the Minton, the one at the lowest part. You see the Minton has staged a really strong resurgence, right? It sort of has been quite stagnant ever since 2016. But thanks to what happened in the market over the last 2 years, you have seen a very nice run up in prices from an average of about 1,000 square feet to now about 1,300 square feet. So for those of you who bought into Minton, congratulations, right? 400 PSF increase. Okay, but Minton is one thing, right? Minton, we know it will do well because it's a nice big development. So over in the OCR conclusion, big developments, very, very important. Big developments basically is a surefire bet to do well in the OCR, okay? But we do want to also see Forest Woods. Let me eliminate the other ones first. Look at Forest Woods versus Minton. So while Minton did pretty well, Forest Woods did even better in terms of the PSF. As you can see, we started off with a PSF gap of about 300, right? When Forest Woods was launched, 300 to 400 PSF differential. That average PSF differential now, thankfully, Minton caught up. If not at one point, the PSF differential did come up to close to 600 PSF difference. Forest Woods have averagely performed better than Minton, right? Percentage annualized with 4.6% versus 4.1%. So on this note, without the sharp spike in prices, the gap would have been higher, and Forest Woods would have beat out Minton a lot more, right? We can also see if we do add in Stars of Kovan, and if we take out the Minton and we add in Kovan Regency instead, right? Without a large development. So Kovan Regency is 378 units. You see, without a large development, the price difference would not be as close, right? And because the transactions over at Kovan Regency is a lot more sparse, so it goes up and down a lot crazier. Maybe for the sake of the discussion, maybe let me put in another one and see Kovan residences, and let's see if it's clearer that way. Yes, we can see it clearer this way. The price gap was around, you see Forest Woods 1349, Stars of Kovan 14, about 300 PSF, more than Kovan residences. The gap today is Forest Woods is close to 500 PSF more. Stars of Kovan still hovering at, stretched out a bit to closer to 400 PSF differential from Kovan residences. So you did see that gap spike. So if you were to buy resale, I tend to lean towards larger developments to be safe. If you buy 99 and if you want a more assured price increase, still go for the newer ones lah. The newer 99s in the OCR areas have a very, very strong performance of doing well. So how would Florence residences perform? My guess is that it will continue to do well because it's new and it's big and it's 99 based on the kind of data that we have, albeit it's going to be a little bit further from the MRT, but we have seen how the Minton has performed, and over the long run it will do well. But of course, for those who are a bit more cautious and a bit more savvy, not savvy lah, we are all savvy after you watch my video, but you may notice that there was a period in time whereby the Minton had a pretty stagnant growth right before 19, right before 2020 lah, the period of quite stagnant growth, but very, very stagnant and slow growth upwards. It's only recently that you saw that big spike up, right? This spike would not have happened in the absence of circuit breaker and the C word and the P word. Okay? Come, now let's go back to the presentation slides and look at other case studies. So that's it for Kovan. A quick example, we have answered quite a fair bit of questions over there. Next up, I'm jumping over to District 16, and District 16 covers Bedok, Upper East Coast, Bayshore, Upper Changi, Tanah Merah. And we will utilize District 16, okay, to answer questions like, does proximity to schools matter? And the results are actually quite interesting. I've used Tanah Merah as a case study, picking out Eco, Grandeur Park, and the Glades, okay? And if you look at the percentage annualized returns, Grandeur Park and Eco beat out the Glades by a significant margin, because the Glades currently is only averaging 0.3%, but Grandeur Park and Eco is 2.8 and 2.3%. What is the difference? The difference is that the Glades is outside of 1 km of Temasek Primary. Of course, one of the difference, maybe I don't say the key difference, one of the difference is that Grandeur Park and Eco, they are within 1 km of Temasek Primary, right, which is one of the top 15 primary schools in Singapore, popularity-wise, and the Glades is out of that 1 km. So just on a very surface level, that may be one of the reasons. Of course, if you want to dive deeper inside, we can, but as a development, they are very, very similar in terms of size and in terms of completion. Very, very similar and in terms of location, very, very similar. So it's a very good case study for us to take out and use what may potentially be one of the reasons for that lah. Okay, it's not the only reason, but one of the reasons. Next up, also I jump over to Bedok Reservoir. Again, the results are quite. If we really just take that indicator lah, because you look at waterfront waves, Keys, Gold, and Isle. The waterfront brothers, all their gains are quite decent, 3.9, 4.4, 2.4, 2.2. And then we have our ugly duckling Archipelago that only averages about 1.4%. And if you really want to see, don't know whether it's coincidence, the 4 waterfront brothers is within 1 km of red swastika, and Archipelago is out of the 1 km of red swastika. Again, is that the only reason? Because as a development, notice how they are also very, very similar in terms of completion and in terms of the number of units. So why the significant difference in performances? As a matter of fact, Archipelago is closer to the new Bedok Reservoir MRT, right? The proximity to schools, right? Maybe. Okay, so somehow or rather in District 16, the location to schools really matter, but in District 19, the locations to school don't matter as much. Maybe because the District 16 is closer to District 15 lah, people more atas, right, the higher budget folks. I don't know. Okay, but it is what it is. It is what the data suggests. In District 16, proximity to schools matter. But if you go to District 19, High Park residences beat out. And maybe also if you see District 19, the schools, while there are some popular schools, they are not like the top tiers that people really bother so much about, specifically buying to put them into the area. Also because those estates are new, so alumni-wise, not super duper strong . Okay, and the last case study that I'll be touching on is at the Upper Changi Road area. Okay, and why I want to pick out that area is because Changi Court and Changi Green, on paper, they should do very, very well because they are freehold, they are very low in terms of PSF, and they were beside the new Upper Changi MRT that opened up beside SUTD and beside Singapore Expo. Those MRTs were announced in 2011, but if you notice over here, in 2010, 2011, it did not, even though if it is freehold, the performance did not beat out Double Bay Residences, which is 99 years, and in another MRT besides Simei MRT, the performance really was exactly the same. As a matter of fact, I've put in Grandeur Park inside as well. Notice the gap between Grandeur Park and Changi Court, as a matter of fact, stretch more, right? It started off at 1,300. Today, Grandeur Park is 1,000. It managed to hit 1,007, but I think it's averaging out to about 1,006 PSF. Changi Court, Changi Green, today is still hovering at thereabouts the 1,100 PSF range. That same range from where it was earlier. We also don't really see it spiking up too much, even though you have seen the other developments spiking up a lot in the last 1 or 2 years. The question is why, okay? Personally, I feel the Upper Changi area, especially the Changi Court, Changi Green area, on paper, so this is where the learning point is . Don't just look at something on paper, because on paper it may look very, very good. Freehold, significantly lower PSF and as compared to its neighbor. Because honestly, if I wasn't so experienced, I did look at Changi Court and Changi Green many years back when I first entered the industry, and I thought I was so clever. I said, hey, this is obviously undervalued. So which brings me to the next point, on paper undervalued, at the end of the day, you buy already, you want to make money, that value has to come up . Because if it's undervalued and it's always the value stay like that, you're not really going to make much money at the end of the day, right? Which brings me, again, then to the end of the case studies. We have many case studies today. But different case studies with different learning points. And I'm going to move forward to, the thought process behind it. What are some of the learning points out of all these things, and how you can then piece them together for your own investment or your own property planning, right? The learning point from the Upper Changi case study is, on paper may look very good, freehold, undervalued in the MRT that will potentially open up and everything, but organically, if they don't have demand moving into the area, because the upgraders, they don't naturally think to themselves, hey, I want to go stay Upper Changi, I want to go stay beside Singapore Expo. It's not something that cross people's mind. As a matter of fact, people would rather go and stay Simei than Simei Double Bay 99 years, then go and stay Changi Court, Changi Green freehold. Also Changi Court, Changi Green, the amenities feel like a chalet, the 1990s, 1990 chalet when we were all in primary school. So, again, right, the increasing trend that I'm starting to see is that people buy the products, they buy the facilities, they buy the vibes as opposed to the tenure. Okay, maybe that's a new quote that I have. People buy the vibes, not the tenure. Okay, interesting, good takeaway. Conclusions, okay, finally coming to an end. Today, 2 hours. We are starting to now average 2 hours every Facebook Live already. Conclusions from the east side of Singapore, the profitable transactions on the east. 99 over in the OCR, right? 99 beats freehold most of the time. Okay, and new launch also beats resale most of the time in terms of profitability and capital gains. Proximity to school is a bonus. Yes, we see it being quite pronounced in the District 16 example, but as when I did my research over in District 19, it is not as pronounced. So I can just to conclude it, I think it's a bonus to be near a good school, but maybe as you move closer and closer to the city, it'll be more and more important, but this benefit is sort of negated if you go further out and into areas of higher number of HDBs, okay? Proximity to MRT is not critical. We have seen the case study for the Minton, the case study for Fontaine Perry, and we have our favorite case study over at Hyde Park Residences. What is more important, right, is at the end, the entry quantums, right? Why that is important, the Watertown example that I illustrated to you guys, that is one of the key examples why we entered Watertown in the first place. It's essentially a compact 3-bedroom at $1 million at the start of 2021. The quantum was very, very acceptable, right? But for you to be able to know this, it's best to work with an agent for this, because the agents have a much clearer idea on what is the kind of acceptable quantums in the market. It's very hard to grasp that by looking at data, by reading online and whatnot. But you know, in my videos, I have shared what are some of the good quantums to look at, right? $1.3 million, 3 bedrooms in the OCR. It's very, very good quantum right now. I see that moving upwards very, very quickly in the future towards 1.5. 4 bedrooms OCR about the 1.6. Price point is very, very good. I see that moving upwards to about the $1.8 million price point, also in a short period of time because of the supply squeeze over in the OCR, right? This short period of time represents a pretty good opportunity for upgraders, because we see a good supply of resale ECs moving on to the market, which is why I thought about this. Are resale ECs a good buy? The answer is yes. Another reason why I feel they are a good buy is because as a buyer, you can enter into it where the supply and demand dynamics at least still work in your favor. It will not be so much in upgraders' favor in the next 2, 3, 4 years because the government is not releasing sufficient land into the OCR. So it will be a seller's market for the next 2, 3, 4 years. Ceteris paribus, right? Assuming everything is the same. So the one place that you can catch that little supply-demand imbalance, really, I feel, is in the resale EC MOP market. Of course, the last point: the larger the unit, the better the profitability. This applies across the board, lah. It's quite a obvious point over here. But an interesting thing to note over in the OCR is 2-bedroom demands actually still not bad, right? Because of course it's a quantum game over in the OCR. Quantums in the OCR. As a matter of fact, again, all across the market at this point in time. Areas of interest, right, in the OCR, in the east side of Singapore. Over in the east side of Singapore, and as a matter of fact, over in the OCR, how do you see what's interesting? Actually, you just need to take a look at where all the MOP units are coming up. I've gotten this data, I've consolidated it just this afternoon off data.gov. So this data is from data.gov. So if it's inaccurate, it's data.gov's fault, okay? But based on data.gov, this is in terms of ranking as of the most number of MOP units in the OCR, which HDB estate, right? Why we see Punggol doing so well, right, is because of the number of MOP units. Why I have such a strong certainty when we acted on Watertown was because of this figure as well, because the sheer number of upgraders into the area, there's bound to be a pocket of demand that's okay with an open concept kitchen, okay with 800 square feet compact 3-bedroom, or maybe a glorified 2-bedroom. There will be a market. I wouldn't have had the same sort of conviction if that was over in Geylang, for example, over in you know, I think Pasir Ris is still okay. Pasir Ris is today facing some spillover demand from Sengkang, Punggol, and Tampines also lah. But this is perhaps one of your most important charts to look at if you are aiming for areas of profitability for the OCR, because the primary demand for the OCR is upgraders, number one, and if not, then it is in the future catching a lot of investors with a slightly lower budget, people that decouple out and looking to buy their second property. They will be looking at resale properties, right, low quantum properties in the OCR, as if the cooling measures do come in and start lowering TDSR, lowering loan to value, the investable quantums will start to shrink, and then people, there will be a demand for smaller OCR units because people's budgets are then capped by all these different cooling measures. Okay? And of course, right, we always end off with a bit of bonus on that list that you saw earlier. If you want to take a look at it in greater detail, you can either watch the replay or you can drop me a text and I'll send it over to you. And also, I do have a bigger list of all this under the radar, underappreciated, okay, not undervalued, because like I said, right, you remember the Watertown example, the guy bought it at the highest PSF. While you can say he bought it cheap, cheaper than the first owner, it was the record PSF, quite high lah in terms of the PSF for the area at that point in time. So, you know, if I send it to you, you scold me that say, hey, why you say this is undervalued, I say first, what I see and how I analyze it is under the radar, underappreciated, with strong exit strategies in the future, with strong potential buyer pools in the future, low risk sort of properties lah. And of course, again, same thing, high level questions to ask yourself. Do you understand the difference between investing in the OCR, CCR and RCR, right? The different strategies to invest in the different markets, the different things to look out for. For those of you who have watched us for the 3 different videos, notice the conclusions are actually very, very different as we go about the 3 different market segments. Right? Are you aware of the shifting trends? Okay, I've shared that a bit of tidbits here and there through the 3 different Facebook live sessions, even in today's sessions, some of the shifting trends that we are going to see. Right? And number 3, more importantly, what does the market want? Actually, in the OCR, very straightforward, right? Take off your investor hat, take off your, over analytical hat. You don't need to be too smart. The data speaks for itself. The data is quite self-explanatory. There's nothing that really jumps out and it's contrarian to popular belief, right? The fundamentals are there. You just need to work on the fundamentals and base your planning and base your evaluation of the fundamentals, right? But you need to ask yourself, what does the market want? You need to understand what the market wants lah. And if you can do that, it's a better chance for you to pick up some of these profitable transactions, right? And why, again, before we go, this is how we do our planning, right? It starts off with the why, the how, and the what, and increasingly so with the people that I am currently working with, the people that I'm speaking to, I feel that there's people that are stuck, confused and whatnot. The reason why that happens to them is because they start their search from the outer circle, which is the what, right? What to buy, blah, 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 things like that. But what is really lacking is how do you then compare those properties on an apple-to-apple basis, right? I asked that question, they can't answer me. If you can't answer me these questions, you probably are going to go a very long route in terms of your property purchase or property upgrading, right? First of all, start off with the why, right? Why are you doing this? Because at the end of the day, as you get tired, if your why is strong enough, you all will persevere, you all will seek help, you all will know what to do, right? You all are aligned, okay? Because if not, especially for the couples that are watching this, a lot of the times, cannot seem to agree because husband has one idea on what he wants near MRT, blah, 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 blah. Or maybe the wife wants near the MRT because the wife doesn't drive, the husband drives, so the husband is okay not to be so near the MRT, the husband wants a bigger place, that sort of thing. But because the husband doesn't clean the house, the wife doesn't want such a big place, blah, 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 blah. Or if not, the husband wants a smaller place because the wife hot stuff, that sort of things. You see, if all this sounds familiar to you, you are not alone. It's very, very normal. So don't focus on what to buy. Focus first on the inner two circles. Why? And then how do you compare them apple to apple? To also lower the fear, how do you plan your property portfolio? How do you plan the different exits, right? Take, for example, our Watertown example. In the near term, if we can achieve these targets, great, right? If not, we have a longer term exit. So with all that being laid out very, very clearly, you are then able to take action without losing any sleep at night, being very, very sure about your potential exit. And of course, then being confident that in the event anything happens, you are able to maneuver your way around it. Okay? And so that is what and how we plan with our clients. And if, of course, that is something that you feel is lacking in your purchase, lacking in what you're doing right now, right, drop us a text. We'll be happy to help. If not, next month, Journey to the West, right? Second part, right? Dissecting profitable properties in the OCR West side, part 2. Okay, join us for that as well. The West side is quite different from the East side, so I think we will be able to pick up some different case studies for you guys, some different conclusions and learning points as well. And with that, we have come to the end of this Facebook Live session. 2 hours sharp. Do we have any questions? Thank you so much for joining. I do get feedback that it is very, very content heavy. So for those of you who managed to stick through, thank you so much. We strive to really just give as much value as we can so that, if it's over too much, right, wait for our snippets to come up and we'll chop it up and then play it out and then you can absorb it at a more bite-sized level. Okay,
so thank you asks.
Under where? Maybe I can go and see that question over there. It's under where? Is that where? YouTube, huh? Let me see. Henry, if you are still here, let's answer Henry's question. Okay. Can you also opine on Hougang recent condos like Riverfront Residences, which was sold at 1,002, 1,003 PSF? Okay, do I think the PSF there? So, like I said, I prefer to look at things from a quantum perspective as opposed to the PSF perspective. The reason why is because the thing is, something is newer, definitely the PSF is higher than the neighbor, which is a bit older, the PSF is lower. But buying a lower PSF does not necessarily mean you will make money. Similarly, buying at a higher PSF, a benchmark PSF, doesn't mean you will lose money. But how do you have certainty over the long run? I think it's more of, personally, what I will see is the quantums. And what I see at Riverfront, the quantums look pretty palatable. I think the 1-bedrooms, that time the entry quantums was like $400,000-$500,000. Those people have made a real good, decent amount of money. And then I think the 2-bedrooms, if you're hovering about at $1 million, I think it's quite okay. $1.1 million, $1.2 million. $1.2 million, maybe we have better options already lah. But at $1 million, I think it's quite okay. 3-bedrooms. I'm not sure what the 3-bedrooms there prices are at this point in time. But can follow the sort of gauge that I have. 1.3, 3-bedroom, quite okay. Even up to 1.4 if you are slightly bigger 3-bedroom. 4-bedrooms, 1.6, 1.7 is quite okay. So quantums I will look at quantums more so than PSF. But if you're asking me 1,200 PSF, I think quite okay lah. 4-bedroom at 1,485 PSF or square feet, Henry? 1,485 square feet. You are talking about square feet, huh? 4-bedroom, if it's square feet and I take, let's say, 1,200 PSF, 1.782 million, I think that's quite okay. I think that is quite okay. Because that's a really good size for a 4-bedder lah, because some of the ECs are. So what I would also consider is what are the sizes of the 4-bedroom over there. Is it at a unique kind of size? Or is there a lot of competition from 4-bedders in the area? Because I believe Kingsford Water Bay, the 4-bedders are quite a bit smaller than 1,400 square feet. Yeah, about 2 mil, 2 mil? The PSF, if 2 mil, then the PSF don't have. It's quite a bit higher already, 1,485, 2 mil, 1,485. If you're asking me, can you sell that at 2 mil? At 1,346 PSF is not out of the question lah. May take time, may not be immediate, may take time. But what I like about the example that you just gave, right, is the 1,485 square feet lah. I think that's a really good kind of size that sort of differentiates you from your competition in the area. So if you are different, then you can then start charging for better and higher prices. And I think Riverfront as a product may jump out and may look nicer and better, I feel, than the product in that area as a whole. So I'm not sure if I answered your question because I don't quite understand. The numbers don't really tally to me lah, but I think generally it's quite okay. 4 bedrooms, OCR, I don't think you can go too far wrong. Any other questions? Do we have questions over at Facebook? But thanks for your question, Henry, and thanks for joining us. Facebook, no questions. Okay. Got comments ah? Oh, the comments is you own self put one ah? Okay. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next month. Bye-bye.